Hey guys, BigDebuffs here, and today we are going to go over my UI, add-ons, and WeakAuras I have. Now you guys are constantly asking about what add-ons I have, which you would know what I have if you actually bother to check the bloody description, as I have all the add-ons I have listed there. Nonetheless, we still try to get these videos out every single season just to keep you guys up to date on what I have. So, we're going to go with my UI first, why I have it set up the way I have it set up. You notice my UI, I try to keep the important things centered, my frames, my unit frames, my raid frames, and my arena frames. And this is just to kind of shorten the time of processing information. Because they're all centered in my screen, I don't have to look all across my screen to see this or that. They're all right there. I can see clearly if I'm just looking directly in the center of my screen, my raid frames, what I need to dispel, what kind of buffs my team has, and of course their HP, and then I can obviously, glance to my right just a little bit and just see my enemies' trinkets, my, the DRs that are on, any sort of buffs or debuffs that are currently under. Now, the other reason why I have everything centered to my screen, especially my unit frames, a lot of people have their unit frames kind of in the top left corner. That's kind of like where the default unit frames are naturally at. I don't like to have many things up here in this upper space, especially like WeakAuras and any other stuff there. And that's because this upper space is what I am relying on in terms of my vision. All the space down here, there's not really going to be any players rolling down here unless I'm in the middle of the fight. However, I'm a healer. I'm going to be back away from my team, behind my team. And I'm going to need this open space to be as open as it can be so I can see everything I need to see. Whether it's this warlock casting fear, or this mage casting a big old glacial spike, or this warrior kind of like shifting towards me to get ready to leap fear me. Whatever it may be, I need this space to be as open as possible so I can be able to make the decisions I need to make based on what I'm seeing. So next up, we're going to go over my add-ons. So we're only going to go over the actual useful add-ons, the stuff that doesn't really matter, the leisure add-ons like AdvancedInterfaceOptions and Dominos. Don't need to know too much about that, other than the fact that Dominos is an action bar add-on. So, OmniCC, very simple add-on. It just applies timers to everything. Naturally, the Blizzard UI does not have durations and timers for your buffs and debuffs, so naturally I would not be able to see this duration on my Flame Shock, but with OmniCC, I can. It's pretty amazing. Next up, we have a BattleGroundEnemies. This is basically just arena frames, but for Battlegrounds. So for those of you that do arena, very useful add-ons. Most RPG players don't do arena, and vice versa, arena players don't really do RPGs. However, this is just really nice to have all around. It will display all the enemies that are currently in that battleground as these little frames here. So it tracks everything that your normal arena frames would be tracking. Their trinkets, their racial usage, any sort of DRs that they're currently under, any buffs or debuffs they're currently under. So you see that Priest just popped Fire Blood. Now they're under the silence effect from Shadow Priest. Now they have Astral Shift apparently. Didn't know when Priest got that. So it's really cool. You can see the markers as they're currently marked. You can see if they have the flag or the orb or any other objective based item they're currently under. Really nice. And having this information, especially as a healer, where I'm naturally looking at these frames all the time, again, it just helps me better the communication and execute the comms very well. So if I can see this person's coming off stun DR and this person doesn't have a medallion available, I can definitely call my team. It's like, hey, this person's a viable kill target, has no trinket, and it's off DR. So we can set something up with that. Also, by tracking their, the buffs that they're currently under, I can definitely let my team know, hey, this warlock is currently popping, or this paladin's currently popping Avenging Wrath. This Fear Warrior has Avatar. I can clearly see that on their frames, so I can better communicate with my team, what's happening in the game. Next up is our BetterBlizz add-on. So BetterBlizzFrames is a very awesome add-on. It gives me these awesome customizations for your unit frames and raid frame. That's actually how I have my raid frames looking clean and sleek. A lot of people ask, how my raid frames look like that. It's because of BetterBlizzFrames. So that's ultimately why I have it, is to just kind of customize my Blizzard frames when it comes to not only the look but just the functionality. I have a lot of blacklisting and whitelisting of buffs and debuffs, so my raid frames are not overly crowded with just useless buffs that I don't really need to keep track of. So you got a lot of customizations here when it comes to filtering out debuffs and whatnot. Really cool. The main reason why I have BetterBlizzFrames is to customize the cast bar. So you see here, another reason why I have my set focus up here in the upper right hand corner, or in the center of my screen towards the right, is because it'll display my set focus bar right here. You see it's very centered, it's detached from your set focus bar, and it's just chilling here right in the center of my screen. Really cool. It just allows me to better see what this person's casting rather than it being attached to the raid or to the unit frame, and being a little bit harder to see because it's off-centered and I don't want to have my raid frame directly in the center of my screen. I can instead just see the cast bar right here. So it makes it very easy to see, and of course it does have an interrupt on the right of it as well, so it'll show if it's available or not. BetterBlizzPlates, it gives you a lot of customizations with the enemy nameplates and the friendly nameplate. So I just use the default Blizz profile because I'm lazy, but that enough is absolutely awesome. You can see here it gives my friendly targets these awesome little icons above their head based on what class they are. So obviously Rogue, Death Knight. You can see they have the class color coding of their names. Really cool. And if they're a healer or a tank, it'll definitely just show above their head, just like this person. Very awesome. I don't like you, brother. Very awesome. Absolutely amazing. For enemy nameplates, it'll kind of display the same thing. Not necessarily like these icons up here, but if you want to have it customized to be like that, like for example, when it comes to like totems or pets, you could definitely have customizations to have icons displayed above those nameplates. So it's ultimately just a really good add-on to have. BigDebuffs, absolutely amazing add-on. This basically just enlarges debuffs and buffs on your raid frames and on the unit frames. So if I'm to hex this Moss Pelt Ramilith here, you'll see that my hex will be displayed on the nameplate and also the unit frame. So it just helps you kind of get nice quick information about what effects that target is currently under. So if I want to lasso this target, but my paladin ends up hodging him, it'll obviously be displayed there. It's like, okay, I don't need to lasso him, so I don't need to be staring and looking at this character to see if he's under the stun animation. I could just check the unit frame or just check the nameplate and I can see what effects they're currently under. Doesn't just work for debuffs though, it works for buffs. So for example, if I am to Ascendance, it'll display my Ascendance buff on my unit frame. Very cool. Details, you gotta know it, you gotta love it. It's basically just a way to kind of track your overall progress in that match. So very nice. Whether it's just healing, I can see here that I was getting a little gapped on healing by my by these healers, so gotta work on that. It just gives you some information, and with that information, you can obviously make the judgment of what you need to do better. So in this case, I was doing less healing than these two guys. That means I gotta do better. So if I can look and see what was in my breakdown, I can see what I can potentially improve on when it comes to healing. Maybe more healing team totem cast, healing team totem was a little bit low. So very good. You can check to see if a certain talent is getting value or not by checking where it's at in your details. If it's a little bit low, then kind of gives you the impression that it's just not that good. Damage, you can check to see who is doing insane damage, and again, that gives you this information. If you're seeing that so-and-so is doing some insane damage currently, then you can let your team know, hey, this boomkin is is just ripping us apart. He's top damage every single fight. Let's get some pressure on him. It's very good. You can also check any other things like interrupts just to see, if we're actually interrupting casts. I only had 8 interrupts on Soothing Mist and Vivify. Could definitely be a lot higher. So again, that gives me the judgment to get those interrupts up. And you can track really anything: mana restored, resource restored, anything else, dispels. If you're running any sort of dispel talents, you can check your dispels just to make sure you are getting the proper amount of dispels in. Up next, we have nameplate cooldowns. So you can see above the target dummy's nameplates that we have some enemy cooldowns here. Obviously, a dummy doesn't have asphyxiate. This is just for testing mode. But yeah, you can see all the cooldowns the enemy currently doesn't have. So trinket, interrupt, asphyxiate. And again, having that information just allows you to better make those judgment calls and let your team know, what's happening. So if I can see that this guy clearly does not have trinket, again, lets me know, hey, we can definitely do something to this guy in a stun. Or if there's something that's not up here, if wings, or if avatar, or if images for a Windwalker monk is not displayed up here, that lets me know that, hey, this so and so has cooldowns available, so we got to make sure we're responding to that. having the information just helps make those judgment calls a lot easier. I can definitely filter out what you want to see and what you don't want to see. So if you don't want to see like any other stuff besides like defensive cooldowns, offensive cooldowns, and trinket, then you can definitely just have those selected. However, I kind of am just lazy, so I just have everything displayed here. So that kind of gives me a lot of clutter. If you don't like nameplate cooldowns, you can definitely just download Omnibar. It's just as good. OmniCD is a party cooldown tracker, so really good. It tracks your party's cooldown so you can see what they have available. And obviously as a healer, you know, you want to constantly be looking and checking what currently your team has, whether it's defensives or any other thing you're tracking, be it interrupts or any other unique utility. You want to make sure you're constantly tracking all this stuff and constantly communicating with your team what needs to happen. You know, obviously in a perfect world, you know, your DPS would automatically know what to do in the case of this scenario. However, that's not the case 90% of the time. So you want to make sure that you are communicating with your team and making sure everything is going smoothly. So you can see here, it's tracking my defense, my healer cooldowns, my self-defensives, my trinket, and then some utility like grounding and tremor totem. So when it comes to like your teammates, if you're playing like Cupid for some reason, Cupid or Shaman, it's back. It's back 100%. Then you can definitely, you know, communicate with your team. Hey, we have Roar, we have Roar Sacrifice, we have Blessing of Sacrifice, we also have Sank. I don't have Trinket currently, so you're gonna have to Sank my next stun. You know, just communicating the simple stuff like that goes a long way. And then obviously when it gets to something like surviving this certain go, we don't have Sank, we don't have Trinket. You're gonna have to sack our hunter because he is the most likely kill target, you know, dying because he doesn't have trinket either compared to you. So having all that information just helps better make those judgment calls. sArena is my Arena Frames add-on. You can use Gladius just as good, but sArena for me is just the lazy version of Gladius. It's just like I don't want to do anything, so I just want to download an add-on and just have it there. I don't really want to customize it all too much. It's just a lazy version of Gladius. So we can see here, this is how I have the Arena Frame set up. I have the Zarya profile, and I made some little adjustments when it comes to size. But it tracks everything you need. It tracks the trinkets, their racial. It's got a nice big old fat cast bar, so I can clearly see what so-and-so is casting. And then, of course, it tracks the DRs and any sort of buffs and debuffs that they're currently under on top of their spec icon, the class icon. True stat values is very basic. It's just a better way to kind of see where your stats are actually at. If you're new to WoW, you have penalty. So if you're going over the cap, it's going to squish some of the, some of the exceeding stat. So you see here, I have 17,288 mastery. However, when I go into PvP combat, that mastery is going to go up because of, your PvP stats increasing. So it's going to go over the penalty. And this is obviously to just prevent like overwhelming stat numbers. With true stat values, you can definitely see that you really only need this add-on for like the beginning of the season just to kind of get an accurate description of, where you want to, put your off stats and whatnot, and to ensure that you're not very well going over the penalty. Now I have WeakAuras. I don't have a WeakAura profile, unfortunately. However, I will just leave the links to where I got these WeakAuras. Called the Ancestors. This is just one I just pre-made, and this is just displays the ancestors I currently have out. So a lot of times I was casting Healing Wave and I was expecting some insane Whispering Waves value, only to find out that I didn't have any ancestors out, and I don't really want to be looking all the way up here to see it, so I just have it above my nameplate. So it will display the ancestors I currently have out. I have 3 ancestors, boom, that's how I know I'm going to get some insane healing, insane Whispering Waves healing, and so I just constantly go for those casts because I know, I can clearly see that I have 2 ancestors out. It's pretty awesome. Healing Stream Totem. This is a Healing Stream Totem timer. Really nice. A Healing Stream Totem, it'll be displayed right here, and this just allows me to keep track of my Healing Stream Totem to ensure I am spacing it out correctly, so I am maximizing my my HPS. When it's about to expire, it'll have this nice little highlight here to ensure that it's about to expire. And then once it does, boom, I place down my second Healing Stream Totem. Pretty dope. Master the Elements. Really nice. This will track your Master the Elements buff. I run a Master the Elements when I am totemic a lot of times, and so this just helps me better keep track of it. So if I'm to Lava Burst this little Cleave training dummy over here, it'll display the, it'll display my buffs here. Very cool. I pretty much just had this purely for the aesthetic rather than like actual functionality. It's got the Frostfire Bullet icon. So precognition, the most widely used WeakAura probably in existence. We have the precognition. It'll display up here when you have precog, and it'll also have like a little zapping sound when you get precog. So it ensures you that you are under the effects of precognition. Pretty dope. Shaman Elemental Shields. This tracks my Earth Shields and my Water Shield. Obviously, as a Resto Shaman, there are times where your shields get purged, and sometimes you're in the heat of the moment. You don't see that this person has Earth Shield. However, this will help you track it. So it has myself Earth Shield, my ally Earth Shield, and of course my Water Shield. It doesn't have any stacks, so I'm taking Therazanes. However, if you are to take regular reactive warding, then it will display the number of stacks you have on, and it will have a highlight on it if you are about to expire your Earth Shield. So like I think it's about like 3 stacks where it'll start to display the highlight for your Earth Shields. Sky Fury Shaman Buff Reminder, probably the most useful out of all these ones. There are times my Sky Fury gets purged off and I just literally don't notice, and so I'm losing out on mastery and a 20% a chance to instantly strike again for 1 hour. Amazing. So if it is not currently active, it'll display up here, stopping trash, and put Sky Fury. I can clearly see that because it's very insulting, so that lets me know to reapply my Sky Fury buff. Very awesome. Totemic Recall will display your previously used totems to ensure that you are resetting the correct totems. So if I want to Earthen Wall and Uniteam Totem and reset those two for maximum defense, then it'll be displayed right here. I Earthen Wall, a Uniteam Totem. It's perfectly set right here, so I can just reset them and boom. Very nice. Very nice little WeakAura there. And then Zera Cursor. This is the white circle around my cursor. Very nice. It's faded out when I'm out of combat. However, when I am in combat, it'll be at full capacity. So just lets me see my cursor a bit more without having to increase the size yet again. I don't want to have a giant cursor on my screen. Really nice when you're playing a class that has a lot of ground-based effects, like Resto Shaman or playing Holy Priest, and kind of whiffing my Holy Word Sanctifies, I can't see my cursor. This just helps me better see where my cursor is at in the midst of all the sludge and clutter on your screen. And there we have it. That is my UI and my add-ons and my WeakAuras. So remember, in case you want to check out anything I do have all the add-ons listed in the description, as well as the WeakAuras to the links where I got them from. And yeah, if you have any more questions about my UI or anything of the sort, definitely leave in the comments. If you have any questions about just the healers I play, and you have any questions about literally anything, it could be about why the Jack-in-the-Box Firehouse sucks and why mine is top tier, you can definitely ask those questions. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and of course if you did, leave a like button down below, chuck subscribe my way, and of course if you really did like the video, be sure to click the link in the description, as it does take you to playlists of all my Resto Shaman PvP content.